are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm covering more haunted places in the U.S. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. Support is never expected but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows, and there are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. You can check out, sign up for the merchandise. What am I doing here? Sign up for the Patreon feed. There we go. Totally blanked on where I was at there. And get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month. And you can also check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts and some other items there with designs made by friends of the show. And you can also, of course, as always, if you would like to, you can make donations through PayPal. And please support friends of the show and follow friends of the show. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on Saturdays whenever she's able to join me. And also Ricky of the Anything Is Possible podcast, who does a paranormal themed show on Sundays, which I co-host. And then also Michael Strange, host of Trouble Minds Radio, which I guest co-host, so to speak, on there a lot as well. And the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows, as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. So a couple of things I always like to mention here when I do these shows on haunted places. The way this works is I get some locations from the web and find some articles and have a summary of the place written up with the assistance of AI and basically in the searching and all that. And then I shared links to 2 articles in the episode description so that you can do your own research and look at pictures and find out more about these places. And also so you can find out what the current state of these locations is and when you can visit them, if that is allowed, and when and how, and basically any kind of price for admission, any of these kinds of things, because I do not recommend trespassing for a number of reasons. Also, I apologize in advance for any mispronunciations of words or names. Words are hard and names can be as well, so things happen sometimes. So let me get to this first location here. Now this is fascinating in a way because this location is called Windsor Ruins, and this is near Port Gibson, Mississippi. And when it's just remains of a building, when there's not even a whole building left, and yet there's still paranormal activity, to me that's fascinating. It makes me wonder how that works and why that's happening. But anyway, this is so Windsor Ruins are the skeletal remnant of what was once the largest and most extravagant antebellum mansion in Mississippi. And over time, it has gained a strong reputation as a haunted site tied to Civil War trauma, tragic death, and the fiery destruction of the house. The Windsor Plantation Mansion. Windsor was built between 1859 and 1861 as the dream home of planter Smith Coffee Daniel II and his wife, Catherine, on a plantation of roughly 2,600 acres overlooking the Mississippi River, about 10 to 12 miles southwest of Port Gibson in Claiborne County. The four-story Greek Revival mansion featured 23 to 29 Corinthian columns, ornate interiors, and even a rooftop observatory, making it one of the largest and most opulent private homes in the state. Mark Twain reportedly said it looked more like a college than a residence. Sorry, there was some kind of reference to a link there right after that, so it threw me off. But there is no link there because that's not what I do in this. Anyway, excuse me. Civil War use and violence. Completed just as the Civil War began, Windsor quickly became entangled in Union operations along the river. Its rooftop observatory served first Confederate, then Union forces as a lookout, and during the 1863 Battle of Port Gibson, the basement was used as a field hospital where hundreds of wounded soldiers were treated and dozens died and were buried nearby on the grounds. The fire and ruin. Remarkably, Windsor survived the war despite an incident in which a Union soldier was shot and killed in the front doorway, an event that nearly led to the mansion's burning by federal troops. The real end came decades later. On February 17th, 1890, a fire, traditionally blamed on a guest's dropped cigar or cigarette ash during a house gathering, burned the great house to the ground, leaving only 23 masonry columns, bits of ironwork, and fragments of china standing amid the ashes. Preservation and modern site. Today, the site is known as Windsor Ruins. The site known as Windsor Ruins, consists of those standing Corinthian columns and some cast iron stair and balustrade remnants. I'm probably saying that wrong. Remnants on 2 acres, framed by trees and open sky. The ruins were added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1971 and later donated by Daniel family descendants to the state of Mississippi, which maintains them as a historic landmark open to visitors. Reported hauntings and atmosphere. Because Windsor functioned as a Civil War hospital and saw on-site deaths, and because of the dramatic, sudden destruction by fire, the ruins have attracted a long tradition of ghost stories. Visitors frequently describe an eerie, almost theatrical atmosphere. The ring of empty columns is often compared to a southern Stonehenge, especially at dusk or under moonlight. Specific ghost legends. Several recurring apparitions are associated with the site. Many accounts mention a phantom Union soldier in a blue coat, seen standing or pacing where the front doorway once was, or walking an invisible staircase that no longer exists. So that sounds very much like residual energy, possibly. Another commonly reported figure is a man in 19th century clothing believed to be Smith Coffee Daniel himself. So lifelike that some visitors say they tried to speak to him before he vanished. That's always fascinating too. Apparitions do not always appear as see-through or just made of light. Sounds and residual phenomena. Beyond full apparitions, people describe disembodied sounds that suggest residual hauntings, echoes of past events imprinted on the site. Reports include faint music and laughter, as if from a long ago plantation party, footsteps, voices, and even the sensation of being poked or touched by unseen hands while walking among the columns. Paranormal investigations. Organized paranormal groups have investigated Windsor ruins many times, often at night. They report capturing EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, and that is, of course, where you don't hear anything with your own ears, usually, but something is caught on the recorder somehow, of conversations or party-like noises, unexplained temperature shifts, and occasional photographic anomalies around the columns and former doorway area, reinforcing the site's status as one of Mississippi's most storied haunted locations. And that's where that one ends. That is fascinating, the way previous events still echo, you still hear them, or bits of them, on that property where there is no way there's a party happening on that property. And I imagine parties would probably take place on multiple floors if it's a four floor. Am I reading that? Remember that right? Anyway, still, when there's nothing for anyone to sit on or rooms for anyone to be in, and you're hearing party sounds, that's pretty amazing. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that there's activity there. It is just surprising that there's so much that it's noticed, and investigation teams go there to find it and all that. Because again, but I mean, what I didn't realize when I started reading that was the columns still being there. I wonder if those columns still being there, they sort of, I don't know, they're sort of antenna in a way, or they help preserve the energy fields in some way. I'm not sure, but that's a fascinating idea as well, especially if they're made of any kind of stone, which we know stones and crystals can hold energy. But moving on to the next location here. My mouse pad keeps wanting to fall off the table. That's not good. Anyway, let's see. Now this next location is Rowan Oak, and that's Rowan space and then Oak. And this is in Oxford, Mississippi. This is a 19th century Greek revival home, best known as the longtime residence of author William Faulkner, and has developed a strong reputation as a quietly haunted Southern Gothic site, with stories centered on both the original Shigog family and Faulkner's own lingering presence. Early history and the Shigog family. That's Sheegog. The house was built around 1844 for Colonel, I'm guessing, Robert Shigog, an Irish immigrant. So I'm probably saying that completely wrong, and I apologize. Irish immigrant planter and enslaver who came from Tennessee and established the property as a small plantation outside Oxford. The original structure was a primitive Greek revival two-story white house set on several landscaped acres with additional wooded land around it that later became known as Bailey Woods. The Shigogs lived there from the 1840s until roughly 1872, spanning the antebellum period, the Civil War, and Reconstruction. During this time, the property would have relied on enslaved labor and later post-war economic decline, which contributes to its aura of the Southern Gothic decay in local memory and folklore. The Bailey era and decline. In 1872, the Bailey family purchased the home, and for decades, it was known locally as the Bailey Place. The Baileys occupied it until the early 1920s, after which the house was left vacant for several years and fell into disrepair, with structural deterioration and overgrown grounds giving it the appearance of an abandoned plantation house in the woods. By the late 1920s, the property's isolation, ruined condition, and surrounding forested land already lent themselves to ghost stories and a sense that the place was brooding, or themes that later accounts uh, explicitly tied to its haunted reputation. Faulkner purchases and renames Roanoke. In 1930, shortly after marrying Estelle Oldham, William Faulkner bought the dilapidated property and began restoring it as his family home and creative retreat. In 1931, he renamed it Roanoke, combining the Rowan tree of Scotland, associated with protection and peace, and the American live oak, symbolizing strength and solitude, even though neither tree actually grew on the site. That's funny. Faulkner lived and wrote at Roanoke until his death in 1962, using the land and nearby Oxford as source material for his fictional, oh boy, Yoknapatawpha, I'm saying that terribly wrong, county and its decaying mansions, haunted families, and racial and psychological tensions. Many of his major works were shaped in this setting, and visitors can still see his handwritten story outlines on the walls of his study, reinforcing the sense that the house and his imagination are tightly intertwined. Modern ownership and museum status. After Faulkner's death, his family retained the property until his daughter, Jill Faulkner Summers, sold Roanoke to the University of Mississippi in 1972 to preserve it as a literary and historic site. The home and its grounds are now maintained as a museum open to the public, with curated interiors that largely preserve the Faulkner family's layout, furnishings, and personal artifacts. The site sits on several landscaped acres with gardens and is surrounded by roughly 20 to 30 acres of Bailey woods, now crisscrossed by a walking trail that links Roanoke to the University Museum area. A path that many visitors also associate with the property's more uncanny atmosphere. Speaking of that, the general haunted atmosphere. Visitors often describe Roanoke as serene but distinctly eerie, with an unusual stillness in the shade of the old oaks. So I guess they eventually did plant oaks there. And along the approach through the woods. Reports frequently mention a sudden chill, a sense that the air thickens, or the impression of being quietly watched, especially near Faulkner's study and in certain upstairs rooms. The combination of its antebellum origins, long periods of neglect, association with slavery, and the Civil War era, and its connection to Faulkner's dark, psychologically intense work, have helped solidify its image as a Southern Gothic haunt rather than merely a literary landmark. Okay. Now we're getting into more of this, which is good because we Okay, good. There's not 10 left to go. Judith, Shigog, and earlier ghosts. One strand of local lore focuses on the Shigog family, particularly an eldest daughter, often named Judith. So there you go. They don't even know for sure that's her name, I guess. Who is said to haunt the house and grounds. In these stories, Judith's spirit, if I could talk, lingers in the upstairs areas, on the balcony, or near windows, and some accounts frame her as a tragic figure associated with an unhappy romance or untimely death, though details vary and are not strongly supported by documented history. Again, this happens over and over again with these places. Apparitions are seen or sensed or felt. Spirits are seen or sensed or felt. And people try to explain why they're there or who they are, even though there's not exactly actual evidence of that being the person. Excuse me. Other tales from the same tradition refer to a spectral hound, in quotation marks, and even a, again in quotation marks, werewolf. That's fascinating. Linked to the property. Macabre narrative elements that have become part of Roanoke's folklore package rather than consistently reported phenomena. That's fascinating too. I wonder if there was ever like one sighting that maybe led to that. Because I do think that single, just one-time, one-off accounts or experiences can happen. Blending Gothic storytelling with actual visitor experiences. These earlier ghost legends likely predate Faulkner's ownership and helped give him a ready-made atmosphere of Old South mystery when he moved in. Let's see. Oh, there's a lot more to go. And we're not going to have time to go through it. But we'll go through what we can. Let's see here. So, I lost my spot. Anyway, William Faulkner's lingering presence. There we go. By far the most common modern haunting story centers on William Faulkner himself, whose spirit is widely believed to remain in and around Roanoke. Docents, staff, and some visitors have reported seeing a male figure resembling Faulkner walking the grounds, or a glimpse in interior doorways, especially near his office and bedroom, only for the figure to vanish on closer inspection. A frequently cited motif involves the sound of work continuing after death. People describe hearing footsteps on the stairs when the house is empty, or the soft clank of a typewriter, that's fascinating, from a study, which stops abruptly when someone enters the room, leaving only the old machine sitting there and still. There are also stories of Faulkner's ghost writing on the wall in his office, or manifesting briefly in that space, emphasizing his identity as a restless writer more than a malicious presence, of course, because not all presences are malicious. Anyway, but that'll do it. There's a couple paragraphs left here, but if you want to do more research, there will be articles in the episode description, and you can look into that more yourself. So thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.